Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, and this is a podcast dedicated to helping you as an accounting professional start, build, and have the premier accounting firm in your area. It's this podcast that offers a variety of topics related to marketing, selling, offering quality accounting services, and helping you get paid what you're worth as you retain and work with the clients you service. Each and every week we have on the show guests, experts in their right, and in this case is going to be no exception. We actually have a wonderful person on the show. It's Chris Hervochon. He is a CPA, CVA. He is a sole proprietor of his firm. Chris actually provides outsourced accounting and tax preparation for small businesses and individuals. And before starting his own CPA firm, Chris spent 10 years between forensic accounting and corporate accounting and finance. Now, he's also been featured in a variety of publications such as Journal of Accountancy, Accounting Today, AMX Open Forum, and is the co-host of a CPA advisory show. Chris has been selected as one of the 40 under 40 in the accounting profession by CPA Practice Advisor magazine for 2019 through 2021. And in 2018, Chris was one of only 41 CPAs honored in the AICPA as a member of Leadership Academy's 10th graduating class. He's also been selected based on his exceptional leadership skills and professional experience for a 4-day Leadership Academy program, which he graduated from in October of 2018. So, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So first of all, I always like to start with a little bit of background, just some perspective on what drew you to the accounting profession. How did you actually get started?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see. I started out as a golf pro, and I tell the story all the time. But I played golf in college super briefly, and like a month before I was getting ready to graduate, I told my dad I wanted to turn pro, and he said,
Okay.
That's cool. You'll know when you go broke. And he was dead right. But my dad was also an accountant, and I took accounting in high school. It didn't go well. I took accounting my first year in college, and I just so happened to have like a really good professor. I did really well. Things just kind of sort of clicked. And, the discussion that I had with my dad was basically like, look, I wanted to go into finance at the time. And he said, look, anything that you want to do in finance, you can do with an accounting degree. And this, I'm dating myself, which is unfortunate, but this was right after kind of the whole Enron thing and Sarbanes-Oxley, and, it was super easy to get an accounting job. And so that's kind of how I started. I graduated college. I did the pro golf thing for like 18 months, which was like 5 minutes, and then got a job in forensic accounting. Got super lucky because that was during the financial crisis, or right before it, really. And it just happened to be a really good space to be in. It's one of those right place, right time type deals, and did that for a little while, and eventually got into corporate finance and accounting and worked my way up and started a side hustle, which is now my firm. I started the side hustle about a dozen years ago at this point. And it got to that point where one day I was like, all right, I either have to grow this thing or I got to give it up because it's just too much. And here I am. So decided to
I love it.
Step out and grow the firm. And so far, so good.
Yeah, this is a great story because I think a lot of the listeners really can identify with it. So many of the people I work with don't start with that career ambition of accounting. It kind of becomes this fallback thing. And with your golf experience, I think that illustrates it quite well. You get your degree. Obviously, you go out there, find the employment, work in the corporate world, and find this as a side hustle, as you explained. I'm curious, why did you, at that time, years ago, consider supplementing your income, taking on a handful of clients? What kind of took you that route of just saying, hey, on weeknights, weekends, I'm going to do a handful of clients and take care of their needs while maintaining a day job? I'm just curious, do you recall what that mindset was?
Yeah, I absolutely do. It was me doing some mental math as far as what my hourly rate was at work. And then I saw I think it was a bookkeeping pricing survey or something like that. And I think it was something that Intuit put out. And I realized that those rates were much higher than what I was making at work. And so It was kind of like, I wonder if that's a thing. And, it was just obviously the business is much more difficult than that. And it's much more nuanced than that. But, it was really no more complicated of a thought process for somebody who was in their basically early mid 20s.
Yeah. So you supplement your income, you're bringing on those few clients. At what point did you have this realization of, hey, I need to maybe consider doing this full time, leave the current job I have, and jump into this both feet? How did that conversation go in your mind?
Yeah, that was about 3 jobs later. And, that conversation was just kind of like, I wasn't super happy where I was, mostly because of corporate bureaucracy. Like bureaucracy is just not my deal. I don't like it. I don't deal with it very well. And so that was a little bit frustrating. And so I said, okay, I'm going to start putting together a plan to make an exit and then do my firm on a full time basis. And that went through a number of iterations over about 6 months. I got myself a coach and we kind of talked through it and talked through various iterations and things like that. A guy by the name of Rod Burkert, he's still my coach today, been super helpful. And what really kind of pushed me over the edge was when I went to AICPA Engage in June of that year. And I went to the Leadership Academy reunion, even though I hadn't gone through Leadership Academy yet. I was getting ready to go through Leadership Academy and had some conversations when I was there. And one of the conversations that I had was about somebody who had gone and bought his own firm and gone out on his own and was basically like, yeah, you'll be fine. And that was my takeaway from that conversation. And so maybe an hour or two later, I was standing at the craps table and I texted my wife. I said, hey, when I come home, I'm quitting my job. And I literally did that. And, I never really looked back. I've just had a series of, I guess, lucky incidents that kind of put me on this path. And it's been a lot of hard work, but so far so good.
So, what was it like for your spouse, your wife, to actually kind of trust you in that process? Uh, do you recall what it was from her that you feel allowed you to feel comfortable doing this, and how was that instrumental in the months that later, came ahead?
Well, she is exceptionally patient, and she had seen me working really, really hard, really ridiculous hours for at that point a number of years, and so she knew it was at least viable. There wasn't zero revenue coming in. I mean, she was working too. We had let's see, at that point we had 3 young children, but she was working, so we had at least a little bit of income, and I had
Okay.
clients already and things like that, so we had like at least a
Yeah.
little bit of income. And so and it's accounting, right? Like every business out there needs an accountant, at least one. And people are still going to file tax returns every single year. So yeah, is it going to be hard? Sure. But ultimately there's plenty of work out there for everybody, and just one of those things, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned a coach. I love that you were working with a coach. What was
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that you felt the coach helped you with as a mindset to make that leap and really kind of go into this full time and see this as being the primary way that you're going to provide for your family?
Let's see, we've been doing that for 5 years now. And I think just over the course of that relationship, he's been really good at asking the hard questions and then revisiting the things that I said to him. So basically holding me accountable.
Yep,
And
yep.
I think that's been the biggest thing. He had run his own firm. He's run his own coaching business. Same type deal. He's been through it, right? But then just providing a little bit of context, like this is what to look out for. Here are some ideas, especially in the super early days, as far as like what needs to be on your website and how are you going to market and how are you going to get business and things like that. And that was it's pre-COVID, so the world has changed a little bit since then.
Yeah.
But just knowing all of that and just being able to put like little bugs in my ear, like, hey, you should be thinking about these sorts of things, and holding me accountable through it all is super, super helpful.
Beautiful. Now, running a business is obviously different than offering accounting services, accounting,
Mm-hmm.
bookkeeping, tax services. What unexpectedly came about as you were running your business that you didn't anticipate, that as you look back, you're realizing, wow, that was something that I needed to at least be prepared for? Or if there's any advice, this is what I would say.
Oh man, I mean, how long is the show? Um,
We've got time. Go for it.
yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things like that, really. But when I went out on my own, I was thinking, look, it's going to be me. It's just going to be me for forever, and I'll just kind of provide, have like a jobby, right? So I'll just provide these services on the side, and that'll be fine. And I'm never going to
Yeah.
have any employees. Well, here I am. It's a team of 8, so that didn't work. But like realizing how hard it is to scale by yourself, um, that was probably one of the big surprises. Getting that first client, and how to build a niche, especially. It's not like getting the first client's really not that hard. It's getting the first one in a niche that you have targeted. Mm-hmm. Especially if you haven't been in that niche. So we do primarily marketing creative agencies. And I had experience when I went out on my own in those businesses, but not to the point where, I knew 100 people or 100 agency owners who were banging down the door for accounting services or anything like that. But, targeting the marketing, really niching down, just having that anxiety at the time anyway, of limiting your market when in reality, you really need to bring revenue in the door. That was probably the biggest surprise, I would say, at the time anyway.
There's a lot of talk about niching, and you had already had a client base simply because you'd been doing this for some time part-time. Mm-hmm. Niching, when you make that decision for the audience, I'd like you to, in your own words, define what niching is and how you felt that doing the niching allowed you to be more specific in the service offerings that you provided to the content companies.
Sure. So I think a niche can be one of two things. It can be a vertical, meaning that you're going to do whatever it is that you do for a specific industry or specific, service type business or product type business or something like that. And then horizontal niching would be that you offer something that nobody else offers, some sort of a service that nobody else offers. I think it's a little bit more difficult in the accounting space, but we chose marketing creative agencies, and it's been a really good fit, I think. Part of the reason is because they're in the professional services space, so they operate a lot like accounting firms operate, and I'm operating an accounting firm, so that makes it a little bit easier. They need our service, so they're creative-minded people. They're not necessarily going to be numbers focused for the most part. That's a good thing. And the more you niche, and the more that you have experience with a specific type of business, and the more you have these conversations, every single day, I'm having at least one conversation with an agency owner, and I'm getting their perspective, and I'm always asking, what's going well, what's not going well, how can we be most helpful? And if you have enough of those conversations every single day, you'll start to see commonalities. And when you start to see commonalities, then you can start to provide advisory services because you know what's going on in the industry. And whatever it is I'm going to talk to, a client B tomorrow about, I may have heard from client A today, or I may have heard from client C yesterday, and already had that conversation and understood kind of what's going on and what they're thinking about and where the pain points are and that sort of thing. So I think it makes it definitely in the advisory space a whole lot easier. From a functional accounting perspective, it's good to have a templated chart of accounts, and that allows for more automation. The more you can standardize, the easier it becomes to hire people and things like that, or hire specific skill sets, really, is what I should say. Mm-hmm. So I just think it makes everything easier. It's hard to do it because you're limiting yourself to who you're going to provide services to, but it makes running the business and providing value to customers so much easier.
Yeah. I liked how you described both the vertical and the horizontal elements of niching. I think that's hugely important because you really can differentiate between both or do either, right? So here's my point. With the vertical, you explained well, it's an industry type focus. You're becoming very particular as to the vocabulary in that space. You're becoming aware of the nuances that exist in that business. And as you're doing so, you're able to communicate so much more effectively and deeply with those businesses just because you're now in that space. And you can go to that industry's associations and conferences, and you can start really becoming that expert in that sphere. And really, those businesses start to lean on you because you obviously know and understand their needs. That's that vertical. And I feel that as we, as accounting professionals, kind of look at what our interests are, what we like as personal hobbies, what we have as experience, those things can lend themselves as to identifying what that niche could be and where we want to really focus. Now, you said that it does sometimes provide a limiting ability in your firm. I'd kind of push back a little bit on that because you can niche in multiple industries and you can just use your messaging to target and speak to that particular industry. And then you can take that and go to another. And as your firm grows and you bring on good quality staff, you might actually be able to leverage their experience to basically now go into a new niche and with your marketing and and everything you're tailoring to that need, obviously take on a second type niche that you're now servicing. But you're horizontal. I love that, because in the space of accounting, we can become very particular as to the services that we provide. And so often our clients are paying for what that unique experience is, whether it be, let's say, benchmarking services, the reports that we're providing, the interaction that we're giving, the advice we're providing, whether we're doing tax planning, tax preparation, CFO advisory. There's a whole suite of services that we can provide that doesn't mean it has to be to a unique industry, but definitely the clients we service in that space are having a unique experience with us, and that's the niche that we're providing. So I like that differentiation. So you, I know, do accounting. I know you're doing bookkeeping, you're doing tax, but I also realize you're in that CFO space. Tell us what the difference in your mind is between CFO services and advisory services.
I would say that CFO services are a component of advisory. Advisory can be, I mean, it can span the entire workflow um, of the accounting cycle and plus tax. CFO services are just, a service offering within kind of that umbrella, so to speak. At least that's the way that I would kind of visualize it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question? I'm not sure that I
It
did.
does. It does.
Okay.
So I'm curious, when you're now saying that you offer CFO services, how do you describe that to the non-accountant? What are you saying that you're providing that they are interested in paying for?
Yeah. So the way that I kind of draw that line in the sand is bookkeeping and accounting is really about everything that has happened in the past. So before today. And then CFO services is really about everything that's going to happen in the future. And how do we take those numbers and that information that we have from the past and then leverage it to make good business decisions moving forward? And how can we make this a profitable business? And how can we make this a better business to run?
Very good. So do you also then offer advisory services where you step outside of some of the accounting related information to help them run their businesses?
Yeah, I would say that some of our services kind of fall into the coaching realm a little bit. In fact, the call
Okay.
I just had before this one, I would say probably fell more into that realm than accounting, so to speak. So yeah, we do for sure.
I like that. I think as accounting professionals, we should entertain, and I know many of the conversations I'm having with accounting professionals, they are entertaining just the years of experience that they have. How do they bring it to their clients, and how do they help their clients run their businesses more effectively when it's things outside of the accounting sphere, having conversations about HR or sales and marketing and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes not what the client is expecting from their accountant, but yet there's so much to be gleaned from, say, in marketing and sales. What's the ROI? How are you tracking that? What's going on with regards to HR, payroll decisions, how to compensate employees? I've had numerous conversations myself with my own clients where it's not what they thought they would be discussing, but it obviously affected the numbers. It directly impacted the bottom line, and it was a conversation that they weren't having with anyone else, and yet they appreciated it with me. So that's very helpful.
For
Um,
sure, that's awesome.
yeah, let's go to the production side of your business. I'm going to set up this question real quickly. Um, when we do assessments of business, we try to just simplify it. We call it mapping the business. We call it marketing and sales for the M. We call accounting as to the accounting services that we're offering, the A. And then P is production. It's the back office, what we're doing with our clients, the workflows that we have in place, the things that we're doing that the client doesn't really see, but they do experience. In your office, you were talking earlier how you intended to grow your business and just be a job, a single solo entrepreneur, one man operation. And now you're an operation of 8. And obviously, that puts into place standard operating procedures, processes, systems. What have you found to be useful as you've grown your business that really made it so that you were delivering a quality product that was consistent for your clients, but also allowed your employees to work efficiently? Tell us about that back office operation.
Oh boy, that's a big one, especially for us. So I'm really big on standardization. I'm really big on quality control. Um, really big on having a good, clean, consistent product that we deliver to our customers. And going back to that advisory piece, I think it's really only possible to do it if you've got good, clean numbers and they're timely. So that's one of the things that I absolutely positively obsess over. So what we're doing around that, well, at the moment, we just implemented a new practice management tool, and that is Carbon, which has done a
Okay,
few,
good.
which has done a few things for us. It's made the customer experience better, which is a good thing. It seems that we're getting faster responses from customers. That's a good thing. A little bit better capacity planning. That's a good thing as we're kind of scaling the team and getting into a number of team members where, that becomes important, especially for me, just figuring out like what do we have to hire next and when do we have to do it. That's super important. Now we're moving to Carbon from Zendesk. So we had basically a help desk solution that we utilized ever since I started my firm. So that's been a little bit of a pain point because we had just this tremendous knowledge base of everything that has happened with every client, for the last 5 years stored in there. So that migration has been, there's good and bad that comes with it. It's been a learning curve for sure. So there's that. We do team training. That's been hugely important just to set expectations. Like, this is what good books look like. Here is what you need to look out for. That's been hugely important. Documentation inside of the business. Have we done the best job at it? No, but we're continuing to chip away at it. Carbon has helped with that. I found just documenting processes and procedures and having them be in a consistent template in a consistent way and one thread. That's been really important.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. And then we've built a lot of automation around quality control, and we are continuing to do that, especially with that migration to Carbon. So what we did was built a whole bunch of automations that sat in Make, which is, for lack of a better term, cloud-based bot software, I guess is what you would say. And every client that we have is on QuickBooks Online. So basically, those bots would go and look at every client's instance of QuickBooks Online, find errors, create tickets in Zendesk. Obviously, moving away from Zendesk, we've lost that. So we're migrating that process over to something that has Carbon on the back end. So we're working through that right now. But having automation in the quality control process has been really, really helpful. And there's a ton of ways to do it. I would definitely recommend putting something in place, but that's how you make sure that you're getting that good, clean, consistent product. And you're flagging errors before the client actually sees them. That's also super important.
Very true. Very true. Now, I'm going to ask two things that I presume you're going to have a very strong opinion on. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. First of all, one of the things that I've experienced as I've implemented these types of things in the business is, first, they take much longer than you ever anticipate. And then the second correlating thing is employee buy-in, the adoption of this. They're obviously accustomed to their own workflows. They're familiar with the process. And here we come in as the owners of the company implementing something new, and we're saying, this is how we're going to do it. The better we can incorporate them into that buy-in process, that's great. But still, there's the adoption, the training, and so forth. What thoughts do you have regarding actually the timeline for it, but at the same time, the adoption of it within your firm?
Yeah, you're 100% right. Timeline is always longer than whatever you think it's going to be, always, with everything. That's what I found anyway. So I'm with you there. As far as buy-in, I think buy-in is hugely important. And the way that we embarked on that was a multi-month process. And basically, I just outlined like, hey, this is going to be the biggest change that we could probably ever make inside of the firm, moving away from Zendesk to Carbon. It really doesn't get much bigger than that. And so we had the conversations that we had with our sales rep at Carbon, like those were all recorded. We shared those with the team so that they could see the questions that we were asking. We sat down on multiple occasions and we had question storming sessions, which are like my favorite meetings of all time. So basically what we do, and we do this virtually, is we sit down and we'll have like a whiteboard app, like over Zoom or whatever, and basically take 5 or 10 minutes. What are all the questions that you have? And we will categorize them, lump similar ones together. And then we went back. We did a couple rounds of this actually. We went back to our sales rep at Carbon and basically said, "Hey, this is what we're thinking about. Like, how do you answer these?" Shared all those answers with the team. We had a fairly lengthy demo, so all the team members were able to go in there and actually play around and with real world use cases and things like that. Ask more questions, but it's a multi-month process. And if you really just distill it down, it's just ask the team, what do you think?
Yeah.
Is this, and just be really clear. Like, the intent here is not for me to shove something down your throat. The intent is to make your job easier and more productive, and for you to have a better work experience, and simultaneously for us to give a better customer experience.
Yeah, what I loved about your explanation of that is I feel that they're hearing the question because answered. It's not just because I told you so, it's because, and you're able to help them kind of collaborate and identify, here's why we're doing this, and see the benefits that they're perhaps going to derive from it, or the clients. And so I like that. Um, the tech stack side of your business, a lot of times when I'm talking to firms, they're curious about other tools you're utilizing. Are there any others? I mean, it's kind of like a free plug here, I guess, but are there any others that you had mentioned that you felt have been instrumental in your firm as to offering the services that you do?
Wow, man, there's a lot of them. I've got a famously deep tech stack, and it's kind of a problem, to be totally honest. Um, Having one singular GL has been instrumental, I would say, and all of our clients are on QuickBooks Online. That's a big thing for
Good.
us.
Good.
Having one payroll platform, which is Gusto for us, although we do have one customer on Rippling, mostly because we just wanted to kind of see how Rippling was and how it worked and things like that. It was more for fun than anything else. But generally, we say, hey, look, if you want to work with us, you've got to be on Gusto. So that's been great. As far as delivering advisory services, we just moved over to Giraffe.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it was probably, I think it was Q3 of last year. And that's been good from just having a fully baked forecasting process, and something that we can templatize, and something that the entire team can learn and implement. We're still working through that process, but that's definitely going to make our budgeting and forecasting process a whole lot easier than it's been historically. So that's a good thing. Also, a better customer experience. It's always a good thing too. Uncat, I like Uncat a lot. Geocon, I like Geocon a lot. So be able to pull QBO information into Google Sheets. And if you can get information into Google Sheets, then the world is kind of your oyster, because it's cloud-based and you can connect all sorts of automation tools to it, which is a good thing. Yeah. Zoom, obviously, we're a virtual firm. Zoom is absolutely critical. Fireflies.ai, that's been super critical too. Having a tool that goes in and records meetings and takes notes, and transcribes them, so you can go and search across meetings fairly quickly. That is super important. I can't tell you how many times just having recordings of meetings has saved us. Being able to go back and like, what did we say again? What did we commit to? Yeah, super important. I would say those are probably the big ones.
I love it. I appreciated the list. I'm sure some people were actually pausing the podcast or rewinding and go, what did he say? Which one was that one? So that was perfect.
I could keep going if you want.
No. Okay. Now that you said that, are there any others you'd like to mention? Because they're probably doing that as we're speaking.
So Make, for automation building. Actually, I probably should have led with that. That's probably all of our automation for the most part is on Make. A small part of it is on Zapier. So those are super critical to our business. Stitch Data, that's an ETL tool. So extract, transform, load for pulling and replicating data out of various places, and either putting it into a data warehouse or putting it into a Google Sheet. That's been important too. Power BI, we've used that quite a bit.
Okay.
That's what our internal dashboard is on. The Google Workspace. So internal chat all runs through Google. All right, I think I'm done now. I don't want to bore the listeners.
I love it. No, these are awesome. And in fact, you actually did mention two that I wasn't familiar with, so I'm going to check those out myself. All right, so here's the next thing. You brought up that you're virtual, and I really want to go down this path for two reasons. One, how have you leveraged that to improve the relationships with your clients? Not just maintain them, but improve them. And then likewise, how has being virtual impacted your firm, either in employee retention, let's say the employee culture that you have? How has it been as to working remotely. What are your thoughts on the customer side and then on the internal employee side?
That's a really good question. Um, I think at least what I'm seeing a little bit of in my business is a shift. So when I went full time, I was working at the time for my kitchen counter, and so it like coming over to my house and dropping off tax documents or stuff, things like that. That wasn't a thing, and it never has been. But I would get potential customers who would call me and say, "Hey, when can I come drop my stuff over or drop my stuff off, or can I come meet you or like whatever?" And the answer, like, no, I'll meet you for coffee or lunch or something, but no, because I work from home. And that at
Yeah.
that time, that was kind of like whatever the opposite of a selling point is. Like that was definitely a big negative against us. And we had a number of, not a huge amount, but a number of clients who just said, look, that's not how I want to operate. Well, then COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've gotten that question once in like 3 years now. So it's not even a thing anymore. So, everybody has kind of adapted to the way
Yep.
that we have always worked, which is a good thing. And then I'm starting to see that shift now where having human interaction in person with either members of the team or with customers is super important. It doesn't have to be on a regular basis, but at least, once every year, once every other year, or something like that, where you can get together and build that relationship. Like last year, we actually took our first like field trip to go see a customer out of state, and myself and another team member, like we showed up and hung out at their office for a day, and you know did the things that we would normally do over Zoom, but did it in person. And I think that has really strengthened the relationship quite a bit. So I think that still needs to happen. And I think it's being virtual has allowed us to work in a different way and be more efficient, and to recruit talent that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to recruit, and to recruit customers that we maybe otherwise wouldn't have been able to recruit. So that's been a good thing. But what I'm starting to realize over the last year or so is that we need to be a little bit more intentional as far as blending the real world and the virtual world.
Yes.
I don't know if that answered your question or not.
It does, and you're sharing some things here that I've heard from others recently. I agree with you. Pre-COVID, it was just kind of it was a big ask to expect the client to do things virtually, to email things, and just really not have a face-to-face interaction. They really appreciated. I felt that human connection. Post-COVID, it's almost like they appreciate the independence that comes from working virtually. The hassle of meeting at a location, travel time, a lot of those things go away. But like you just said, there's now a blending going on. One of the things that I'm really big on is I love client on-site visits. I'm very particular about going to a place and seeing the workspace. A Zoom walkthrough just doesn't do it justice.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though they may be far off, I'm willing to at some point incorporate into my client relations that visit, just simply because the on-site, I feel, to the client feels as if it's a commitment on my part to their success. They feel like I'm 100% bought into working with them. But in the tour, going through the facility, meeting individuals that I wouldn't otherwise meet, let's say on Zoom or in an email correspondence, I'm getting introductions to people I wouldn't otherwise meet. And lastly, just seeing the workflow, the physical components of how they provide a product or a service, just the goings on of the workspace, I'm going to see things and bring up things, ask about things that I never would have known virtually. And the bigger part of it is now in future conversations I can reference back to that, and when they say things, I know what they're referring to because I physically saw it. So for me, I liked how you ended by saying there's a blending going on. I think the client, I think internally, everybody's kind of preferring the remote. They see it being efficient and it's effective and it's still productive. But I do believe there's a blend going on to say whether it be employees or the clients, we're needing to find some way to at least have that human interaction, physical to physical. And I'm doing the same thing with my employees. We're going to have an annual event, or we have an annual event, and we intentionally want to bring our employees to it. It's a conference that we do for owners of an accounting firm. And the owners, as they come in, we want our employees to come in and see who our customers are and interact with them. So definitely an in-person experience. So
Yeah, I love that.
I really do like what you shared there. Let's talk about with the business. you've been doing this now, you're successful, you've got the 8 employees, you've got an established firm. What would you say to your younger self as they were contemplating doing this as a supplemental income, as they were deciding at the casino, I'm going to go full time? Hey, I'm going all in. What would you say to your younger self as advice?
My younger self as advice, I would have said, do it sooner, like way sooner.
Yeah. And is there anything that you'd want to give a heads up to?
It's hard, for sure. Um, you can't expect it to be easy because ultimately it's a people business and people are difficult, right? I mean, they're not difficult, but managing people and managing relationships, it's hard and it requires work. Um, if you're building the business and you're responsible for revenue and you're responsible for sales and you're responsible for marketing, you've ultimately got to build relationships, and relationships are hard for sure. But at the same time, it's super rewarding. And just having that ability to control your own destiny earlier in life, I think, is huge. And ultimately, if you're always kind of waiting around for, oh, well, if I just get this experience or if I just learn this one thing, and you just keep kind of pushing it off, trying to develop the confidence to go out on your own and actually do it, like, it's very rarely does it ever work out that way. Right. You got to build that confidence by kind of just holding your feet to the fire and realizing that the entire world isn't going to fall down around you every single day. Like, you can do this. You've been successful. You've had tough conversations with customers. You've had tough conversations with employees. You've sold work. There is market proof in what you do and how you do it. I think that's the best way to do it. If you're just waiting for the perfect moment, like, that just never exists. It's not a thing.
Love it. Love it. And the thing that I really appreciated you bringing into that is that this is a people business. At the end of the day, it is numbers and so forth, but more importantly, it is people. And it's the client relations that we have, the employee relations that we have. They are people, and we need to be sensitive to that. So that was wonderful to tie that in. The next thing is kind of a little off topic. You're busy. You're doing amazing. What do you do to decompress? What's that thing that you find is personally helpful for you?
I walk a lot and I read. Well, I don't read. I listen to books when I walk and just kind of zone out. So that's one. And then I play golf, although I don't play as much golf as I think I should or want to. I play enough where it's good. Gets outside, get some physical activity in, get back to doing something that I grew up loving. So I would say those are pretty much the two ways that I decompress. And then apart from that, it's going to sports games. My kids are at that age where they're in
good
everything, and so doing that and watching them, sometimes that can be a little bit nerve wracking, but like that's the most fun, right? It's not necessarily the least stressful, but it is the most fun.
Yeah. Good. I love that your kids are active and such. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And there is that stage in your life when you're going to do that. I'm no longer in that stage, but I'm happy for you that you're there. I'm glad you also brought this back full circle to golf. I was going to ask regarding golf, do you have a favorite course that you've played? And do you have a bucket list of one that you would love to play?
Yes. My favorite course is the Ocean Course at Kiowa. And bucket list course would be Pine Valley. I grew up like right around Pine Valley, and I played a lot of golf kind of in that neighborhood, so to speak. And I've walked it, but I've never actually played it.
Beautiful. I love it. I was hoping to get those two things in there. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrap up our conversation here with a quick summary of our discussion. And then at the same time, I'm going to come back, not at the same time. Then afterwards, I'm going to come to you for a closing thought to wrap this up. Before I begin with my summary, I do want to share to the listeners of the podcast, definitely take a moment to subscribe to this. If you haven't already, definitely do so. Set the reminders. We send out each and every week a new episode where we address various topics to help you run and have the premier accounting firm in your area. Like this, we're going to bring on the episode's guests that are experts in their own right, where they have insights as to what you can be doing addressing marketing, selling. We're going to be talking about accounting services. We're talking about back office, what you can do to onboard your clients more effectively, even all the way through to mental health. Just a variety of topics that you'll want to take advantage of. And I encourage you to go back and binge those. Listen to those episodes, take a moment and go through those that you feel most appeal to your needs. And in the process, build the premier accounting firm in your area. In addition to subscribing, liking, and enjoying the podcast, I do want to also encourage you to go to the episode description. In the description, each and every episode has highlights, specials, things that you should be aware of. In particular to this, we've had a conversation regarding a few things, particularly that of offering CFO services. For that, you're going to find information in today's episode regarding becoming a profit and growth expert and providing quality CFO and advisory services, and what it is you can do to complement the accounting, bookkeeping, tax services that you're currently providing with that of becoming a profit and growth expert for your clients. So definitely take the time and check out that information in the episode description. Regarding the episode, though, today we covered a variety of topics. I appreciated Chris sharing at the beginning his evolution. I think everyone has their story as to how they were drawn into the accounting profession, what it is that caused them to get that entrepreneurial bug of starting their business. And his story was so relevant, I think, to so many. It's that idea of supplementing your income and then eventually realizing that this is something that you can do full time and taking that leap, going in full time. And in doing so, he grew from being that solo entrepreneur to literally that of an 8-person firm and has done amazing well. He's niched his services. I thought that was a great conversation, particularly the distinction between a vertical niche and a horizontal niche. Wonderful part of the conversation to help you understand how those are both relevant to your situation and what it is you ought to be considering as you look at the services you're providing to your clients. In addition to that, we also talked about the tech stack, and Chris was amazing in sharing off a number of things that you could be utilizing, things that you should consider as you're running your business. So much of what we're doing comes down to how efficient we are at the work we're providing, and that then determines the profitability in which we're being productive and making the money that we're doing from the services we're providing. So that whole list of things, different services and tech type applications to his business, very great, very good list for us to actually take note of. The other thing that I wanted to kind of highlight was his advice to his younger self. I just thought it was simple and to the point. What advice would he give himself? And it's he should have done it sooner. He should have acted faster. And I think that's so true. Most of the people that I speak with always, in hindsight, reflect on not only was the journey worth it, but at the same time, they should have done it so much quicker. And I hope as a listener, you're realizing that there's perhaps some things that you're contemplating, considering, wanting to do. And I invite you to take that leap, make that decision and act now. That's what we all ought to be doing. We're not getting any younger. Lastly, with regards to mental health, I love that he shared that he walks, that he plays golf, that he, with his children, goes and supports them in their sporting events. I really do feel that we can, as a tendency, I think, become workaholics, and myself included, need to find things that we can do to kind of step away from our business. Whenever I do, I find that I get epiphanies. I have these insights on what it is that I can be doing in my business that much better, simply because I took the time to remove myself from the day-to-day operations. So definitely some great advice in today's conversation. I'm sure you gleaned from this conversation a number of things helpful to you in your situation. So with that being said, Chris, what's a final thought that you'd like to share today?
Yeah. So the final thought that I would give is that we have moved to a virtual world in the last couple of years, but it's important to maintain that blend. And it's important to just keep the idea that it's a people business. Employees are people, customers are people. These are all real people. And you just have to keep that in mind. You can't be robotic, and you can't be, just sitting by yourself all the time in a virtual world and not have interaction and not build those relationships.
Perfect. Wonderful advice. I love the people assessment there. It is a people business. All right. So with that being said, let me just wrap up today's episode with a few quick things that you can find also in the episode description. First and foremost, there's some additional free resources that we provide here related to the podcast that I'd invite you to go find out about. These are additional free resources to assist you as you're working on your business. Also, we have, as I shared earlier in the podcast, a annual event for owners of accounting firms. It's GrowCon. Each and every year we have this event to pull together you as peers so that you can learn from one another, bring in the experts so you can hear from the professionals that have excellent advice for each of us, and then at the same time see what other resources that Universal has to help you, in fact, be in business for yourself, but not by yourself. In addition to that, again, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. And lastly, if you'd like to apply these principles or learn more what it is you can be doing to work on your business, I invite you to check us out at universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801 888-265-3777. And always remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal. Take care and be safe out there, everyone.